Welcome, and let the world grow soft and quiet all around you. As you settle in and let your breathing slow gently down on its own, imagine drifting outward from the Earth, past the Moon, and far back through time itself, toward the very first moment of everything, the beginning we call the Big Bang. This is not a tour meant to frighten or amaze you, but a calm and unhurried invitation to wonder, and to drift softly towards sleep. There is nothing at all you need to remember or hold onto tonight. Just let the words move slowly over you, one gentle fact at a time, as you sink a little deeper into rest. The first fact is that the Big Bang is the name scientists give to the beginning of our universe, a moment nearly 14 billion years ago, when everything we can now see, every distant star and slowly turning galaxy, first began its long and patient journey outward from a single, unimaginably small and warm beginning that quietly held all that would ever be. The second fact is that the Big Bang was not truly an explosion out into empty space, as its name might gently suggest, but rather an expansion of space itself, with every point stretching softly away from every other point, all at once, everywhere, in the very same quiet instant, so that space was not filled by it, but was gently created by it. The third fact is that because space itself was expanding, there was no single center to the Big Bang, and no special place where it happened. It happened everywhere at the same time, so that every corner of the cosmos, and the quiet room in which you rest tonight, can each rightly call itself the very center of the beginning. The fourth fact is that in its earliest moment, the universe was astonishingly hot and astonishingly dense, with all of its energy folded into a space far smaller than anything you could ever hold or picture or imagine, glowing with a warmth beyond any fire we have ever known, hotter than the deepest heart of any star that would one day shine. The fifth fact is that ever since that first moment, space has been gently stretching outward, carrying the galaxies slowly apart from one another, so that the universe you rest within tonight is far larger and far cooler and far calmer than it was in its distant and fiery youth, softening steadily over billions of quiet years into the vast dark we know. The sixth fact is that the name Big Bang was first spoken, almost playfully, by the astronomer Fred Hoyle in the 1940s, who did not himself believe the idea and favored a different picture of the cosmos. Yet the name he offered was so simple and so memorable that it gently stayed with us, and it remains with us still to this day. The seventh fact is that the very first sliver of time, called the Planck epoch, lasted less than a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a single second, a moment so impossibly brief and so extreme in its heat and density that our current understanding of physics cannot yet describe what quietly happened within it, leaving it softly veiled from us. The eighth fact is that in that earliest instant, scientists believed the four fundamental forces of nature, the forces that shape and bind all things, were merged together as one single unified force before they slowly separated one gentle step at a time. As the young universe cooled and quietly grew, each force taking up its own role in the unfolding cosmos. The ninth fact is that gravity is thought to have been the first of the forces to separate and go its own way, stepping quietly apart from the others in the tiniest fraction of the first second, beginning its long and patient work of shaping the cosmos, gathering matter together across the ages into the stars and worlds and galaxies yet to come. The 10th fact is that in the first unimaginable sliver of a second, the universe may have gone through a phase called cosmic inflation, a sudden and extraordinary stretching in which space itself ballooned outward faster than we could ever picture, in far less than the blink of an eye, growing gently past all comprehension before settling back into a calmer expansion. The 11th fact is that this inflation is believed to have lasted only from about a tiny fraction of the first second to a slightly larger, though still vanishingly small fraction of it, and yet in that faint whisper of time, the universe grew almost beyond all understanding, doubling in size again and again and again in the softest and swiftest of moments. The 12th fact is that during inflation, a region far smaller than a single atom is thought to have swelled to a size larger than a grapefruit, and then far larger still, stretching gently but powerfully into the calm and spacious cosmos that would one day cradle the stars, the planets, and every quiet living thing that has ever gazed up at the night. The 13th fact is that inflation quietly explains why the universe today looks so smooth and so even in every direction we turn our telescopes, for that early stretching would have gently ironed out any wrinkles or irregularities, leaving behind the calm and beautifully balanced cosmos that we softly observe tonight, the same in every corner of the wide and patient sky. The 14th fact is that inflation also explains why space appears so remarkably flat, its geometry balanced with great precision, as though the swift early stretching had pulled any curves in the fabric of the cosmos gently straight, in much the way a balloon's wrinkled surface grows smooth and flat beneath your hand as it is quietly filled with air. The 15th fact is that the tiniest ripples of quantum uncertainty, present in the very first instant, were stretched by inflation to enormous sizes, and these gentle ripples would later become the seeds from which all the galaxies and all the stars would one day slowly grow, so that the grandest structures in the sky were born from the smallest of beginnings. The 16th fact is that when inflation ended, the energy that had driven it poured softly into the universe as a warm bath of particles and light, in a moment scientists gently call reheating, filling the young cosmos with the raw material from which everything would later be made, kindling the warmth that would linger, in one form or another, across all of time. The 17th fact is that in the early universe, matter and antimatter were created together in almost perfectly equal amounts, two mirrored kinds of substance that, whenever they meet, quietly vanish together in a soft flash of pure light, leaving nothing solid behind at all, so that the young cosmos was very nearly a place of perfect and gentle balance. The 18th fact is that for reasons still gently debated by thoughtful scientists, there was a tiny imbalance, with just slightly more matter than antimatter, perhaps only one extra particle in a billion, and it is from that small and precious surplus that every star and every world, and you yourself resting here tonight, are quietly and wonderfully made. The 19th fact is that in its first fraction of a second, the universe was filled with a shimmering soup of quarks and gluons, the tiniest known building blocks of matter, drifting freely in a plasma so hot and so dense that they could not yet join together into any larger thing, but only swirled and glowed in the warm early dark. The 20th fact is that everything you can now see across the entire night sky, all the countless billions of galaxies scattered to the farthest reaches of space, was once gathered together in a space smaller than you can easily imagine, before it began its slow and graceful spreading outward across the ages, into the calm and endless dark that surrounds us now. The 21st fact is that as the universe expanded, it also cooled, in much the same gentle way that warm air cools as it spreads outward and thins. And this steady, unhurried cooling allowed the particles within it to slowly settle, and to begin joining softly together into larger and calmer forms, as the fierce early heat gave way to something quieter. The 22nd fact is that when the universe was only about a millionth of a second old, the free-drifting quarks at last cooled enough to bind together into protons and neutrons, the familiar particles that would go on to form the very hearts of all the atoms yet to come, the small and steady cores of everything solid we would ever know. The 23rd fact is that these protons were, quite simply, the nuclei of hydrogen, the lightest and the most common substance in all the universe, so that in a very real sense the earliest and simplest chemical element was quietly born within the very first second of all of time, long before there was any world or any star to hold it. The 24th fact is that around this same early moment, the ghostly particles called neutrinos stopped interacting with everything else and began drifting freely through space, and those very same ancient neutrinos are still gently streaming through the universe, and through the walls, and through you as you rest, in vast and silent numbers, harmless and unfelt, even now tonight. The 25th fact is that as the young universe cooled a little further, the electrons and their mirror particles, the positrons, met and quietly annihilated one another across all of space, leaving behind only a small surviving remainder of electrons, and filling the cosmos with a soft and lingering glow of light that would shape the story of everything to follow. The 26th fact is that even a full second after the beginning, the universe was still billions of degrees in temperature, far hotter than the deepest heart of our sun today. A warmth spread evenly and gently through all of space, with no cold and empty corners anywhere at all, and no dark and quiet places yet in which anything could hide. The 27th fact is that during the first few minutes, the universe passed through a brief and precious window called Big Bang nucleosynthesis, in which it was just the right warmth for the simplest nuclei of the lightest elements to form, before it cooled too far for such gentle building to continue, closing softly like a door easing shut in the dark. The 28th fact is that in these first few minutes, some of the protons and neutrons fused softly together to build the nuclei of helium, the second lightest element in all of nature, in a slow and gentle echo of the very same fusion that quietly powers the shining of the stars today, and that warms the sunlight falling upon your world. The 29th fact is that this early fusion produced a universe made of roughly 3/4 hydrogen and 1/4 helium, measured by their weight, and this simple and ancient recipe of the early cosmos is still very nearly the mixture that scientists softly measure across the great glowing clouds of space today, a quiet signature left over from the beginning. The 30th fact is that alongside the hydrogen and helium, the young universe also made the faintest traces of a few other light things, a little deuterium, a whisper of lithium, tiny amounts that scientists can still carefully measure, like gentle fingerprints left behind by the first few minutes of all time, softly confirming the story of how everything began. The 31st fact is that this brief season of element making lasted only about 20 minutes in all, and then the expanding universe cooled and thinned too far for any more nuclei to form, gently closing the window and leaving the cosmos with its simple and lasting early recipe, unchanged for billions of years until the first stars would one day begin their work. The 32nd fact is that the amounts of hydrogen, helium, and those trace elements that scientists actually measure across the sky match with beautiful precision the amounts the Big Bang Theory quietly predicts, and this close and gentle agreement is one of the strongest and most reassuring pieces of evidence we have that the universe truly did begin hot and dense and small. The 33rd fact is that no heavier elements, none of the carbon or oxygen or iron that make up you and your world and every living thing, were forged in the Big Bang itself, for those richer and more intricate elements would have to wait patiently across long ages to be slowly cooked much later within the glowing hearts of the stars. The 34th fact is that for a long while after those first few minutes, the universe remained a glowing, foggy plasma, a warm sea of bare atomic nuclei and free-roaming electrons, all mingled together with light, in a soft and even haze that filled every part of space, so that the whole cosmos shone dimly like the inside of a warm cloud. The 35th fact is that in this glowing early fog, light itself could not travel very far at all, for it was endlessly scattered by the free electrons, bouncing this way and that without ever getting far, so that the whole universe was gently opaque, like the soft and shining inside of a warm mist through which nothing could clearly be seen. The 36th fact is that for its first many thousands of years, the universe was ruled by its radiation, by light and energy, which carried more influence than matter did, so that the young cosmos was gently governed by its own warm glow far more than by its scattered substance, a bright and even sea of light stretching softly in every direction. The 37th fact is that this glowing, opaque phase lasted for about 380,000 years, an age that feels long to us who measure our lives in mere decades, and yet is only the briefest of opening chapters in the great and patient story of a universe now nearly 14 billion years old, and still quietly unfolding. The 38th fact is that at last, when the universe had cooled to a few thousand degrees, the wandering electrons were captured softly by the waiting nuclei, joining with them to form the first complete and neutral atoms, in a gentle and gradual moment that scientists quietly call recombination, when the scattered pieces of matter first settled into calm and stable wholes. The 39th fact is that these first neutral atoms were simply hydrogen and helium, the calm and stable atoms that would one day gather together into the very first stars, so that the raw ingredients of the whole coming cosmos, of every sun and every world, were now, at last, quietly and fully in place, waiting patiently in the dark to begin. The 40th fact is that once the electrons had settled into atoms, they were no longer free to scatter the light, and so the fog gently lifted across all of space, and for the very first time in its long history, the young universe became clear and open and beautifully transparent, allowing light to travel freely onward across the widening dark. The 41st fact is that at the very moment the universe became transparent, the light that had been trapped within the glowing fog was suddenly set free to travel onward through the clearing space, and that ancient, liberated light is still gently crossing the cosmos today, and we now call it the cosmic microwave background, the soft afterglow of creation. The 42nd fact is that this cosmic microwave background is the oldest light that we can ever hope to see, a soft glow released more than 13 billion years ago, so that to look upon it is to gaze gently at the earliest visible face of the universe itself, a portrait of the cosmos as it was when it was newly born. The 43rd fact is that this ancient light is not gathered in any one direction, but fills all of space evenly around us, arriving softly from every part of the sky at once, a faint and steady glow that gently bathes the whole of the cosmos, and our small blue world within it, in the lingering warmth of its long-ago beginning. The 44th fact is that when this light was first released, it glowed with the warm reddish color of a great and gentle fire. But over the long ages, the steady expansion of space has slowly stretched it, wave by wave, cooling it far down out of visible light and into the quiet, invisible range of microwaves, softening it beyond our sight. The 45th fact is that the cosmic microwave background now shines at a temperature of only about 2.7 degrees above absolute zero, the coldest cold that could ever possibly be, so that the once blazing fire of creation has softened, across billions of patient years, into the very gentlest imaginable whisper of warmth, spread evenly through all of space. The 46th fact is that this ancient glow was found quite by accident, in the year 1965, by two scientists named Arno Penzias and Robert Wilson, who noticed a faint and steady hiss in their radio antenna that they could not explain, a soft murmur coming equally from every direction of the sky, no matter where they gently turned to listen. The 47th fact is that when they slowly realized this gentle hiss was the leftover light of the Big Bang itself, still faintly glowing after all those ages, it became one of the great discoveries in the whole history of science, and the two of them were later honored, quietly and deservedly, with the Nobel Prize for what they had found. The 48th fact is that this ancient afterglow had actually been quietly predicted years earlier by thoughtful scientists such as George Gamow and his colleagues, who reasoned carefully that if the universe truly began hot and dense, then a faint and cooling echo of that first warmth should still linger softly all around us, waiting patiently to be noticed. The 49th fact is that the cosmic microwave background is astonishingly uniform, glowing at very nearly the same temperature in every single direction we choose to look, a smoothness so gentle and so even across the whole sky that it speaks softly to us of the calm and balanced beginning from which all things, in time, arose and slowly grew. The 50th fact is that hidden within this great smoothness lie the tiniest of variations, differences of only about 1 part in 100,000, faint warmer and cooler patches scattered across the sky, like the very softest of ripples upon an almost perfectly still and quiet pond that stretches, calm and endless, in every direction around us. The 51st fact is that in the year 1992, a satellite named COBE gently mapped these tiny ripples for the very first time, revealing the delicate pattern of warmer and cooler patches across the whole sky, and confirming that the seeds of all future structure, of every galaxy yet to be, were already softly present in the light of the infant universe. The 52nd fact is that later satellites, named WMAP and Planck, mapped this ancient light in far finer and more loving detail, drawing exquisite and careful portraits of the early universe that have taught us more about the beginning of everything than almost anything else we have ever gently studied, refining our picture of the cosmos to remarkable precision. The 53rd fact is that those tiny ripples in the ancient light are deeply important to our whole story, for the slightly denser patches were the very places where gravity would later gather matter together over long ages, so that these faint early whispers grew, patiently, into all the galaxies and clusters of galaxies that softly fill the sky tonight. The 54th fact is that by carefully studying the detailed pattern of the cosmic microwave background, scientists have been able to measure the age of the universe with remarkable confidence, arriving gently at a figure of about 13.8 billion years since the very beginning of time, a number read softly from the faint glow of the dawn. The 55th fact is that this same ancient light also quietly reveals the deep recipe of the whole universe, telling us how much of it is ordinary matter, how much is the mysterious unseen dark matter, and how much is the even more mysterious dark energy, all of it read softly and patiently from the delicate pattern of that faint and even glow. The 56th fact is that the precise pattern of the ripples also tells us that the geometry of space is very nearly perfectly flat, meaning that on the very largest scales the universe is balanced and even, neither curving gently inward upon itself like a great sphere, nor spreading endlessly outward in the shape of an open and infinite saddle. The 57th fact is that the light of the cosmic microwave background has been stretched by the expansion of space to more than 1,000 times its original size, a slow and gentle stretching that carries within it the whole long story of just how far, and how patiently, the universe has grown since that first ancient glow was set free. The 58th fact is that scientists sometimes call the source of this ancient light the surface of last scattering, the soft and distant boundary in time beyond which the universe was still a glowing fog, and from which the very last freed rays of light began their long, quiet journey across the widening dark toward us, arriving only now, tonight. The 59th fact is that a tiny fraction of the faint static that once flickered and hissed across old untuned television sets was, in truth, this very same ancient light of the Big Bang, so that a soft whisper of the birth of the entire universe was quietly present unnoticed, in our own living rooms and in the corners of our homes. The 60th fact is that the cosmic microwave background is considered one of the strongest and most beautiful pieces of evidence that the Big Bang truly happened as we understand it, for its gentle and even glow is exactly the soft and lingering warmth that such a hot and dense beginning would be expected to leave quietly behind, spread through all of space. The 61st fact is that after the light was freed and the fog had lifted, the universe entered a long and quiet span that scientists gently call the cosmic dark ages, a peaceful time before any stars had yet been born, when all of space was filled only with calm, slowly cooling clouds of simple hydrogen and helium gas. The 62nd fact is that through these long dark ages, gravity worked slowly and patiently, drawing the thin gas together around the unseen scaffolding of dark matter, which had gathered first into a vast and gentle web spread across the cosmos, quietly preparing the hidden framework upon which all the galaxies of the future would one day slowly grow. The 63rd fact is that the first stars are believed to have kindled into light somewhere between 100 and 400 million years after the beginning, when the gathering clouds of gas finally grew dense and warm enough at their deep centers to ignite the very first fires of fusion, ending the darkness with their new and tender light. The 64th fact is that these very first stars were quite unlike the familiar stars we know today, for they formed from only hydrogen and helium, with none of the heavier elements yet in existence anywhere, and many of them are thought to have been truly enormous, brilliant, and very short-lived, blazing fiercely and briefly in the young cosmos. The 65th fact is that within the hot and crushing hearts of these first stars, the heavier elements were forged for the very first time, the carbon and oxygen and iron that had never existed before in all the universe, cooked gently and patiently out of the simple hydrogen and helium that the Big Bang had left quietly behind. The 66th fact is that as these first stars blazed across the young cosmos, their fierce light slowly stripped the electrons back away from the surrounding hydrogen gas in a great and gradual change called reionization, which gently swept across the universe over millions of years and cleared the last of the cosmic fog from the widening spaces between the stars. The 67th fact is that the first stars gathered together with others into the first small galaxies, and these early galaxies slowly grew and merged and gathered over billions of unhurried years into the grand and graceful spiral and elliptical galaxies that softly fill the universe around us today, each one a great and slowly turning island of light. The 68th fact is that on the very largest scales of all, the galaxies are not scattered randomly through space, but are woven into a vast and delicate pattern that scientists call the cosmic web, with long, bright filaments of galaxies stretching between great and quiet voids of nearly empty space, like gentle threads across the endless dark. The 69th fact is that our newest and most powerful telescopes, such as the James Webb Space Telescope, can now gently peer back across billions of years to glimpse some of the earliest galaxies of all, seeing their ancient light exactly as it was when the universe was very young, a soft window opening onto the distant morning of the cosmos. The 70th fact is that in the year 1929, the astronomer Edwin Hubble made a quiet and profound discovery, finding that nearly all the distant galaxies are drifting away from us, and that space itself is expanding, gently confirming that the universe has a long history, and that it once, in the distant past, had a true beginning. The 71st fact is that Hubble noticed that the light from distant galaxies is shifted toward the red end of the spectrum, a gentle stretching of their light that scientists call redshift, which happens because space itself is expanding and softly carrying those galaxies farther and farther away from us as their ancient light travels slowly across the widening void. The 72nd fact is that Hubble also found a beautiful and simple pattern, now gently called Hubble's law, in which the more distant a galaxy is from us, the faster it appears to be drifting away, exactly as one would expect if all of space were quietly and evenly stretching outward everywhere at once, carrying everything softly along with it. The 73rd fact is that if space is truly expanding today, then it must have been smaller and more crowded and warmer in the distant past, and by imagining the steady expansion gently run backward through time, scientists are led naturally to a beginning, a first hot and dense and tiny moment, which we have come to call the Big Bang. The 74th fact is that this simple and elegant idea of winding the expansion of the universe softly backward through the ages was one of the very first clues that pointed thoughtful scientists toward the notion that everything we now see must have arisen, long ago, from a single, shared, and unimaginably ancient beginning common to us all. The 75th fact is that when astronomers carefully weigh the galaxies by watching how they spin and how they move through space, they find far more gravity at work than the visible stars alone could ever explain, pointing gently but firmly to a great, unseen substance they call dark matter, quietly holding the galaxies together across the void. The 76th fact is that this mysterious dark matter is thought to make up about 27% of everything in the universe, far more than all of the ordinary matter that we can actually see, and yet it gives off no light at all, and it passes softly through everything, remaining patiently and completely hidden from our watching eyes. The 77th fact is that all the ordinary matter that we can actually see and touch, every star and planet and mountain and living thing, makes up only about 5% of the whole universe, a small and precious and glowing fraction of a vast cosmos filled mostly with mysterious things that we cannot yet fully see or understand. The 78th fact is that in the year 1998, scientists made the surprising and gentle discovery that the expansion of the universe is not slowly winding down, as they had long expected it might, but is instead very gradually speeding up over time, driven onward by a mysterious and unseen something that they came softly to call dark energy. The 79th fact is that this dark energy is thought to make up about 68% of the entire universe, the very largest share of all that exists, and yet it remains one of the deepest and most gentle mysteries in all of science, its true nature and its origins still quietly and patiently unknown to even our finest minds. The 80th fact is that the ultimate fate of the whole universe depends softly upon this mysterious dark energy, upon whether its gentle outward push continues on unchanged through the ages, or slowly fades away, or gradually grows stronger, quietly and patiently shaping how the long and distant future of the entire cosmos will one day come to unfold. The 81st fact is that the observable universe, the part of the cosmos whose light has had time to reach us since the beginning, is thought to be about 93 billion light-years across, a span so unimaginably vast that our minds can only gently gesture toward it, rather than ever truly grasp or hold the fullness of its size. The 82nd fact is that the whole universe may be far larger still than the part that we can actually see, perhaps unimaginably larger, and it may even stretch on without any end at all, an infinite and quiet expanse extending softly far beyond the edge of everything that our finest telescopes could ever possibly hope to reach. The 83rd fact is that we can only ever see as far as the light has been able to travel to us since the very beginning of time. So there is a soft horizon drawn around us in every direction, a gentle and unseen boundary beyond which the rest of the universe stays quietly hidden, patient and unknowable from our view. The 84th fact is that because space itself is expanding, and expanding ever a little faster with each passing age, some very distant galaxies are drifting away from us so swiftly that their light will never be able to reach us at all, gently and forever slipping beyond the farthest edge of everything that we could ever come to see. The 85th fact is that in the far and distant future, as the expansion of the universe continues to gently accelerate, the most distant galaxies will slowly fade from view one by one, until the sky of some far-off age holds only the quiet, nearby stars of our own small neighborhood, drifting softly in a darker and emptier heaven. The 86th fact is that scientists gently explore several possible fates for the universe far ahead in time, and the one most widely favored today is a slow and peaceful cooling, sometimes called the heat death, in which the cosmos spreads out ever wider and grows ever colder and calmer over almost endless and unhurried spans of quiet time. The 87th fact is that in this gentle and gradual ending, sometimes softly called the Big Freeze, the universe would simply continue expanding and cooling forever, its warmth and energy spreading out more and more evenly across the growing dark, until at last everything settles slowly into a still and cold and deeply peaceful and unbroken calm. The 88th fact is that scientists have imagined other possible endings too, such as a big rip, in which the ever-growing expansion gently tears everything apart, or a big crunch, in which the universe collapses slowly back inward upon itself, though these grander and stranger fates are thought, for now at least, to be far less likely than the quiet cooling. The 89th fact is that over unimaginably long spans of time, far beyond anything our small clocks could measure, the stars themselves will slowly use up their fuel and gently fade, one by one, until the last of them cools softly into darkness, so that even the brightest and grandest of the galaxies will at last grow quiet and dim and still. The 90th fact is that every atom of the ordinary matter within your own body traces its long story all the way back to the Big Bang, for the hydrogen within you was made in that first hot and ancient beginning, and the heavier atoms were later forged, over billions of years, within the glowing hearts of the stars. The 91st fact is that you are, in the most literal and gentle sense, made of the very material of the early universe, your body shaped from atoms almost as old as time itself, quietly gathered and rearranged over billions of patient years into the living, breathing, resting, and dreaming person that you are, softly and safely, here tonight. The 92nd fact is that everything you have ever seen or touched or loved throughout your whole life is connected, through one long and unbroken thread of time, all the way back to that single first moment of the Big Bang, so that you and the whole vast cosmos truly share one long and gentle and deeply ancient story together. The 93rd fact is that science remains gently humble about the very first instant of all. For even our finest and most careful theories cannot yet fully describe that earliest moment of extreme heat and density, and so the deepest beginning of the universe still rests softly beyond the edge of everything that we are able, for now, to know. The 94th fact is that the question of what came before the Big Bang, or whether the very word before even holds any meaning at all when time itself is only just beginning, remains one of the most beautiful and open of all mysteries, a soft and gentle wonder upon which the quiet and drifting mind may peacefully rest. The 95th fact is that perhaps the most quietly astonishing thing of all is that this vast universe, born so long ago from that tiny and warm beginning, has slowly given rise to living beings who can look back across nearly 14 billion years of time and gently wonder, with love and awe, about the very moment they first came from. The 96th fact is that each new discovery about the beginning of the universe tends to deepen its mystery rather than to close it, leaving us always with a soft and open and endless sense of wonder at the cosmos. A wonder that asks nothing at all of us, and that soothes, rather than troubles, the quiet and resting mind. The 97th fact is that to quietly contemplate the Big Bang is to stand softly at the very edge of the beginning of all things, in a place where our gentle questions grow far larger than any of our answers, and where wonder itself becomes a kind of deep and calm and peaceful rest for the tired and drifting mind. The 98th fact is that somewhere out in the deep and endless dark, at this very moment, countless galaxies born of that first ancient beginning are drifting slowly and silently apart from one another, in a calm and patient expansion that has already lasted for billions of years, and that will go on gently for countless ages yet to come. The 99th fact is that you are a small and gentle and beloved part of this very same slowly unfolding universe, cradled safely upon a quiet blue world, carried softly along on the long and unhurried journey that first began with the Big Bang itself, resting exactly where you are meant to be, in this very moment, tonight. The 100th fact is that as you drift now into sleep, the universe goes on expanding, and the galaxies go on drifting, and the whole great cosmos goes on unfolding, patient and calm and endless, holding you softly and safely through all the quiet hours of the night. Rest now. Sleep well, and thank you for drifting with me beyond the stars.